Breaking news this Monday night. Word of a ceasefire after Iran launches missiles towards American air bases.
They wanted it to be proportionate and yet de-escalatory.
What President Trump is claiming tonight and how Iran is responding. Canada's new security and defense deal with the European Union. What it will allow Canada to do faster. The heat is on, dangerously.
Right there, they just don't even want to go out.
The blistering temperatures baking parts of Ontario and Quebec. Plus, a Canadian hotshot makes history.
It's hard to believe that I'm part of that group.
How NBA star Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has slam dunked his way into an elite club.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Iran had said it would fight back, and it did, firing missiles at Qatar, targeting an American airbase in the Persian Gulf, the largest U.S. military installation in the region. And then late today, President Donald Trump announced what he says is a ceasefire between Iran and Israel. Congratulations to everyone, he wrote. It has been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire in approximately 6 hours from now, when Israel and Iran have wound down and completed their in-progress final missions for 12 hours, at which point the war will be considered ended. Good evening, and thanks for joining us. It sounds definitive, but there are lots of qualifiers about the timing, and it is unclear what exactly Iran and Israel have agreed to and whether this could be a durable ceasefire. The U.S. was bracing for retaliation after President Trump sent that fleet of B-2 stealth bombers to drop multiple bunker-buster bombs on Iranian nuclear sites over the weekend, injecting the U.S. directly into the conflict. Today, the head of the International Atomic Energy Agency said without inspectors on the ground in Iran, there is no way to verify how much of Iran's nuclear program was destroyed, but he says it's believed significant damage was done.
To achieve the long-term assurance that Iran does not acquire a nuclear weapon and for the continued effectiveness of the global non-proliferation regime, we must return to negotiations.
Now, talk of this ceasefire. There are lots of threads to follow here. Jackson Proskow is with me from Washington. Jackson, this is moving fast. What do we know for certain?
Well, Donna, here's what we understand has happened. The Emir of Qatar mediated the deal between the two nations, according to Reuters. Israel agreed first, and then Trump asked the Qataris to convince Iran to agree. Now, this proposal all came together after Iran attacked a U.S. airbase in Qatar today in what was a carefully calibrated piece of retaliation for those U.S. strikes on Iran's nuclear program. In fact, Iranian officials said that they used the same number of bombs as the U.S. used in Saturday's strikes on Iran. Shortly after that, Trump called Iran's response, quote, very weak. He then thanked the Iranians for giving the U.S. advance notice of their strike, which allowed the missiles to be intercepted without any injuries. And then Trump suggested that response, that measured response, could actually open the door to peace with Israel. Reports tonight suggest that the ceasefire talks with the Qataris really got going after that attack on the facilities, in the U.S. facilities, when it was abundantly clear that neither the U.S. nor Iran wanted to escalate any further, Donna.
And Jackson, everyone was hoping diplomacy would prevail, but Israel wanted Iran's nuclear program destroyed. Is there any hard evidence that has been accomplished?
No, and I think we're a long way from saying that this is a done deal tonight. First of all, it would require inspectors and time on the ground inside Iran to verify what has happened to the nuclear program, whether any of that highly enriched uranium was shipped off-site and is now perhaps somewhere else in the country. Yet the White House also seems insistent on claiming success here, and Trump today was actually lashing out at people who suggested less than full destruction of Iran's nuclear program. So there's a bit of a back and forth here. And then we need to point out the sort of details here, the nitty-gritty on this ceasefire. They've built in time for both nations to finish their missions that are currently underway, as you mentioned. And tonight, Israel has in fact issued fresh evacuation orders for parts of Tehran. It seems that strikes may still be underway. And then there's the question of timing here, this potential 12-hour window or a full day before this is over. You've got the president branding this already, saying it should be called the 12-day war. It's all very confusing. It's hard to know what will stick at the end of the day. But Donna, after everything the world has been through over the past 2 weeks, it does feel like it is perhaps a starting point.
All right, Jackson Proskow in Washington, thank you. Israel did continue to attack Iran today, and not just nuclear sites. It bombed the front entrance of a notorious prison in Tehran where political prisoners are held. Iran fired back, launching a series of missiles and drones at Israel. Mike Armstrong is in Jerusalem.
There were multiple waves of missiles in Israel, both overnight and midday. The country's ambulance service says there were no injuries, despite some of the projectiles making it past Israeli air defenses. This was an airstrike that hit on the side of a highway in the center of Israel, and in the south, an electrical facility was struck. Power was knocked out to about 8,000 homes temporarily.
Our network is very, very strong, very, very robust. Iranians have no chance to damage them.
Both sides in this war talked publicly Monday about their targets. Israel says it carried out its most intense day of bombing so far on the Iranian capital. The defense minister says it's expanding its attacks from eliminating Iran's nuclear program and missiles, and is now going after things that help the regime hold onto power. One of its targets Monday, Iran's notorious Evin prison, the main facility where political prisoners are held. The Iranian foreign minister spent his day in Moscow meeting with Vladimir Putin. Iran has supplied Russia with drones for its campaign in Ukraine, and there are reports Iranian officials are disappointed Russian support hasn't gone further, similar to the U.S. support of Israel. The Russian president did call the attacks on Iran unprovoked aggression. Growing concerns about what comes next is pushing some to leave Iran. This was the border with Turkey. This Iranian says Israel is forcing people out. Tehran is empty, she says. Now, in Israel, for the first time since this conflict began, foreign nationals left on flights from the airport in Tel Aviv. A British military aircraft flew British nationals to Cyprus. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Jerusalem.
The U.S. bombing of Iran's nuclear sites took place without the approval of U.S. Congress, and President Trump provided no legal justification for it. Russia's president called it an unprovoked aggression. And earlier today, the French president said this. There is no legality in these strikes, Emmanuel Macron said on a visit to Norway. He agrees Iran should be prevented from building a nuclear weapon, but says the U.S. lacks a moral framework to attack. The only way to permanently rein in Iran's nuclear ambitions, Macron says, is through diplomacy. The head of NATO says he believes the U.S. did not violate international law. Canada's Prime Minister was more careful with his words. Mark Carney says he spoke with President Trump overnight and focused on de-escalating the conflict.
For years, for decades really, Iran has pursued nuclear weapons, where the state of Iran has been a sponsor of terrorism. Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and beyond. And where at least in our opinion, Canada has listed the Iranian Revolutionary Guard as a terrorist organization, active terrorist organization. These are violations of international law.
The Prime Minister is in Europe ahead of the NATO summit in the Netherlands. He met with European leaders in Belgium, aiming to strengthen ties with Europe when it comes to defense, procurement, and security. Mackenzie Gray is traveling with the Prime Minister.
Remembering Canada's past contributions. Mark Carney visiting a war cemetery in Antwerp, Belgium.
He died the day after.
The day after from his wounds. Yes,
yeah.
he was
because the battle was one day.
One day, 13th October.
Battles that saw 348 Canadian soldiers from the First and Second World War die and be laid to rest alongside allies like the Americans, a country longtime friends are now moving away from.
We have a peculiar figure in the White House who is choosing the road of protectionism and even isolationism.
Carney's counter to the current administration: take things to a new level with other friends, leading Canada to sign a new security and defense deal with the European Union.
We are going to build trading relationships with like-minded partners, reliable partners, partners that are aligned with our values.
The broad-ranging deal doesn't mention the U.S. by name, but it sets the table for Canada to move away from Washington, allowing defense companies to participate in European procurement programs, and the Canadian Armed Forces can buy equipment cheaper and faster,
as an alliance,
which will help Canada meet a likely new NATO target.
What we will agree as an alliance is a 5% target to spend on GDP when it comes to our collective defense.
Getting NATO countries to increase defense spending has been a key demand of Donald Trump, a part of a political dichotomy that Carney and Europe face, trying to keep the U.S. a happy NATO member while strengthening partnerships to distance themselves from an unpredictable president.
We're all going to NATO, but only some of us in NATO are talking about an allied industrial policy that will make us stronger. That's the future of trade, not a narrow discussion on tariffs.
Carney and Trump spoke early Monday morning, Donna, about Iran and trade. And while the two are both going to be at the NATO summit on Wednesday, Canadian officials say not to expect the pair to meet one-on-one.
Okay, Mackenzie Gray in Brussels, thanks. Ukraine's president will be at the NATO summit again this year. Volodymyr Zelensky is still pushing to be part of NATO, though the U.S. president does not support that. At the same time, Russia is keeping up its attacks. At least 11 Ukrainians were killed today, and Zelensky keeps trying to shore up support from other allies. Redmond Shannon reports.
Much of the world may be focused on the Middle East, but little has changed in Ukraine. Authorities say a child is among those killed in Russia's overnight strikes. The country's president arrived on the other side of Europe Monday for a surprise meeting with the head of state of two of his most important allies, the UK and Canada.
Would you please take one step towards me, please? If you'd be so kind. Yes, we can.
King Charles welcoming Volodymyr Zelensky for the second time in 3 months, the men sharing lunch. Before Zelensky headed to meet British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and some of the Ukrainian troops training in the UK.
I'm very thankful to all of you. We are very thankful to the UK, all your team and people of the United Kingdom.
Before what could be a challenging NATO summit for Zelensky, the leaders announced a cooperation agreement on military production.
The first of its kind so far as Ukraine and the UK are concerned.
Zelensky's latest UK visit is on a day when Ukraine's internal security agency claims it has foiled another assassination plot against him. The SBU gave new details on how a retired Polish soldier allegedly planned to kill Ukraine's leader in Poland, at the airport typically used by Zelensky for his frequent foreign trips to shore up international support. It claims the man was a long-time sleeper agent for Russia.
Zelensky's travelling around the world does present huge challenges for not just his security, but the security that's provided by the host countries that he's visiting at the time. Attempted assassins only have to get it right once. Zelensky's security detail have to get it right all of the time.
Last year, Ukraine also arrested 2 colonels in its own security agency for plotting to kill Zelensky. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
Record-breaking temperatures coming up. The heat dome smothering parts of Ontario and Quebec. Americans are doing whatever they can to stay cool. A sweltering heat dome is lingering over the eastern half of the U.S. From Wisconsin to Florida, tens of millions of people were under extreme heat warnings today as temperatures soared to new records. Cities like New York and Washington were expected to reach between 30 and 40 degrees Celsius today, and the dangerously hot conditions are expected to stick around through Wednesday. That same heat dome is scorching parts of central Canada, too. There were records broken in Ontario and Quebec, and the humidity is only adding to the misery. Touria Izri reports.
Montreal feels hotter than California's Death Valley.
We're just trying to drink some water, trying to stay cool, but it's not working.
Much of southern Quebec and eastern Ontario are inside a sweltering heat dome.
We're from Victoria, where it's a lot cooler, so we're not used to humidity.
It's a blistering start to summer in central Canada, with temperatures hovering around the mid-30s, but feeling as high as 46 degrees.
We've never seen it as warm in Montreal or Toronto or Ottawa as it is today.
Summer camps are moving indoors or spacing out time in the sun.
Drinking lots of water, ice water, giving them popsicles this afternoon, and now we've come to play in the water park to cool them down.
In Toronto, schools with no or limited AC have opened cooling centers.
There were a bunch of students who bring books and things like that. They just don't even want to go out.
For some, there's no reprieve from the heat, with power outages hitting parts of that city. In Toronto's East End, the beach is packed. But in Ottawa, some popular tourist spots are quiet.
It's too hot for his paws. We're spending most of the time inside today.
Public health officials are warning Canadians to do just that, particularly seniors, children, and people with pre-existing medical conditions. But if you do venture out, avoid the hottest times of day.
Nowhere better to be than on the water in a heat wave.
Environment Canada says this heat wave is particularly dangerous because there was no buildup. It came all of a sudden. The extreme temperatures are expected to let up in the next few days. Donna?
Touria Izri in Montreal. Thank you. Ahead, how a widening military conflict in the Middle East could spike oil prices. Whenever there is a conflict in the Middle East, there is a risk it will disrupt the oil market. Crude surged above $75 per barrel today, but then dropped again. Iran controls a key shipping route in the Persian Gulf. Heather Yurix-West explains what's at stake if the conflict accelerates.
52 years ago, it was a crisis that brought North American energy security to the forefront when Arab nations stopped shipping oil to the West in retaliation for America's wartime support of Israel. It caused pumps across North America to run dry.
The reliance on Middle Eastern supply, even though it's still great, still very impactful, isn't like it would have been in decades past.
It's why, after the U.S. launched that series of attacks on Iranian nuclear targets over the weekend, after an initial surge, the impact on global oil prices has been muted.
A little bit of shrugging shoulders. Obviously, we're about $10 off of some low points that we had before, but this is not a market that seems to be in panic.
Countries like the U.S. and Canada have become major oil producers since the 1970s, but the Middle East and Iran still hold power in this global supply chain. Located between Oman and Iran, the Strait of Hormuz is considered the world's most important oil choke point, connecting the Persian Gulf to the Arabian Sea. Every day, 20 million barrels of crude come through this strait. That's 5 times more than Canada currently exports, representing 20% of the global oil trade. If the route was closed, there are 2 regional pipeline alternatives, the Saudi East-West line or the Abu Dhabi line operated by the UAE. But American officials estimate those lines only have about 2.5 million barrels a day in available capacity, replacing just a fraction of what would be lost.
An $8 to $9 a barrel U.S. Spike, if we were to see a blockade happen.
So far, Iran is only threatening a blockade. The U.S. president responding online with a call to everyone keep oil prices down and to the Department of Energy, drill, baby, drill. Though those commands fall outside the president's actual power, the markets appear to be maintaining calm for now. Heather Yurix-West, Global News, Calgary.
Hoop dreams come true. Next, a slam dunk for Hamilton Ontarios SGAA and his team. The list of Canadians who have won an NBA title just got longer. Hamilton's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Montreal's Lou Dort helped steer the Oklahoma City Thunder into the history books. They beat the Indiana Pacers in Game 7 of the NBA Finals. And SGAA, as he is known, is the best of the best this year. Though as Jeff Semple reports, his story is bigger than one title or one trophy.
This industrial city in southwestern Ontario might seem a long way from NBA glory. But Hamilton's hoop dreams just came true. Hamilton's own Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, or SGAA, made history, winning the NBA championship, becoming the first Canadian to be Finals MVP, and only the 4th player ever to also be the league's top scorer and regular season MVP, alongside Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Michael Jordan, and Shaquille O'Neal.
To have a Canadian with those titles in that company, in this sport, a truly global sport, is a very special thing indeed.
Asked about being ranked among the all-time greats, the 26-year-old said this.
It's hard to believe that I'm part of that group. It's hard to even fathom that I'm that type of basketball player sometimes.
That humility, combined with a fierce work ethic and self-belief, is what people here in his hometown of Hamilton remember and revere. At his old high school, they've built murals in his honor, and the party is just getting started.
Nice hat. Let's see the hat. There it is.
NBA champs.
SGA's friend and personal trainer had a front row seat. He says Gilgeous-Alexander remains deeply connected to his Hamilton roots.
Just won a championship last night. Parade's going to be tomorrow, and we're flying home tomorrow night. So he loves being home. He loves where he's from, and that's truly special to see.
In the offseason, Gilgeous-Alexander runs this youth basketball camp in Hamilton. His former coach and teacher remembers when he was a gangly 8th grader with an unparalleled work ethic.
He would get me to get the gym open 6 a.m. before school. He is someone, if you want someone to win, he would be the one that you would want to win.
And he won alongside fellow Canadian teammate Montreal's Lou Dort. Their Oklahoma City Thunder is the youngest team in the NBA, suggesting they're far from done making history. Jeff Semple, Global News, Hamilton, Ontario.
What a story. That is Global National for this Monday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada showcases Silver Creek, BC, Lunenburg, Nova Scotia, and an iceberg off the coast of Battle Harbour, Newfoundland and Labrador. Send your pictures of Canadian pride to globalnational@globalnews.ca. And thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.